on. What we're seeing in trends as far as, which is really interesting from a style standpoint when we're talking residential, is a little bit, at first we thought maybe this was not going to be a trend, but we're really seeing it in specification work with, especially our higher end designers that we work with, is going back to narrower planks.
Right.
That's really something that's a new phenomenon. And I think what's happened is that the trend has been to wide boards over the last 5 years. That we've kind of maxed out, and now people are wanting to go back to narrow plank. And I think one of the big factors to that has been that a lot of our synthetic competition, like laminates and LVPs, have gone to wide plank rustic looks predominantly, whereas what we're seeing is a little bit more demand to narrower planks and cleaner grains, not large knots, very, very little knots, very clean, classy looking floors, which is really great for us because the lumber that we procure for our product, we're very well set up for that, where we have access to a lot of these cleaner grades, long lengths, narrow plank. So we're hoping that that trend continues. The biggest difference, I think, if we think about it in comparison to that trend 15 years ago, where that's what we were doing a lot 15 years ago, is that we're also seeing the trend for low gloss finishes too.
Yes.
So, whereas a standard finish used to be at 40%, 40-degree gloss, now we're seeing it down to 5% gloss, which is our Duramat finish, which we're selling a ton of. So
yeah, which is why one of the greatest things coming out there, right? It's simulated oil, so all of the benefits of oil, the low gloss, therefore it doesn't show the marks. It doesn't show. It still is wood, right? It still does mark. It still does get the character to it, but it just doesn't show it. It's just phenomenal.
It's funny because one of the negatives in hardwood flooring, if we look back to the early 2000s, 2005 to 2010, we were putting a ton of maple semi-gloss floors, and they're going to show every nick and dent. And now what we're seeing is ultra low gloss finishes, where it's a little bit more livable, a lot more livable than what was popular back then. And unfortunately what happened back then is it soured a lot of people on hardwood flooring.
Right.
And it's not necessarily the wood's fault, that trend, that selection at that point kind of set that up for failure. Whereas now what we're seeing is this guy here, one of our newer SKUs, Laguna, is we're seeing that lower gloss floor in the with a brushed finish. So this type of floor is a lot more suitable for active families with kids and pets, and that sort of thing. Whereas something like this,
right,
in this dark color is going to show every single scratch through it, right? So.
Exactly. I was used to call it as the piano finish, right?
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly.
And you said the high glosses, and even just the glosses themselves. I remember when I first started with it, a semi-gloss was about a 70% sheen. I think now it's even down to like a 50 or something.
So around
right?
40 to 50.
40 to 50.
40 to 50
so,
now.
Like it's just even the higher glosses are now lower than what they historically were, right?
Yeah.
So
like kind of our new standard is the cashmere finish, which is at 8 in vintage. It's pearl, and that's at 18% gloss. Is kind of the new standard. But we've seen a big trend down to 10% or 5% gloss levels over the last few years, and that I think that was, like you said, originally driven by oil finishes. But what a lot of people who have bought oiled floors are realizing that the maintenance required for that is unattractive. So, and whereas ours in the Duramat finish or in the UV finishes at vintage, they still have our 35-year wear warranties to them. So, so they don't require that same maintenance.